everyone, hope you're doing well today. My name is Nate, and today we're going to learn how to tie-dye. As a special thank you, I just reached 1,500 subscribers on my YouTube channel, and as a thank you, I would like to make a special design today. So with Halloween coming up, we're going to be making a skull design, and we're going to be doing 2 of them today. So before we get started, you're going to need a white washed cotton t-shirt. You're going to need some sinew, some kind of cord or rubber band to tie the shirt with, some washable markers, Procion dye and dye bottles, and some dish soap. So you're going to want to prep your shirt in soda ash. If you don't know how to do that, please watch my video, What is Soda Ash? And it'll go over how to prep your shirt so you can get ready for this. And you'll also need to prep your dye. If you don't know how to prep the dye, please watch my video, What is Procion dye? And it'll go over the mixing instructions for that for you. So to get started, the first thing that we're going to be doing is you're going to want to take your shirt and turn it inside out. And then you're going to want to lay it face down on the table. So we're going to take out all of the wrinkles. Try to get this as level and even as possible from side to side. So we are going to be folding this in half. So if we do not get this level and get all the wrinkles out here, then our image is not going to be the same on this side and this side, or on the front and the back. So it's important to make sure you get out all of your wrinkles here. So come up to your sleeves, get your sleeves out, flatten out your shoulders, down the armpits, and down into the waist. And there may be some like little tiny wrinkles here, but as long as the 2 layers are touching and flat with each other, then you're going to be okay. So once you've got this nice and smooth, you're going to take a washable marker and come down to the bottom, take the 2 points and fold them up to each other. And so right here is going to be your middle point. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take the washable marker, make a little line right there. And then we're going to draw a line right down the center here. Okay, so I usually start off with a lighter color marker. Blue's usually darker, but this one's starting to run out, so this one's lighter. I'm going to go over it with a darker color. But by starting off with the lighter color, you can kind of get a little rough draft drawing in case you don't draw it perfect the first time. And that way you can go over it with something darker to finalize it. So being able to draw a skull is going to help. If you're not really any good at drawing a skull or drawing in general, this part could be very tough. So good luck on the drawing. If you want to follow along while I draw, I've done this a few times, not a whole lot. And so I don't have an image of a skull around me, but I did do a few of these and got some practice. So I've got the overall shape, and it's enough of a shape for me to basically make my own version of a skull. And so this might actually be a little high up, because if it's here, we're going to need a bit of the top part. So I'm actually going to move this whole thing down. So this might actually look kind of weird right here, but I think right there is where we're going to have our eye. So with this being the back, it seems like there's more room, but the collar of the shirt is right here. So you're going to want to make sure you got enough room for everything. If you try to squeeze it all in, everything just kind of looks, oops, I'm not going up to there. I almost made that side super huge there. Okay. You see how I'm making a lot of marks here with this light marker. Just kind of helps me see, helps me build a little bit at a time. And then we're going to come over here. So we want it to be about so big. If it gets too big, again, we won't have room up here. And so we'll have big old giant or a small head. And the head is going to be larger than most people will want to make it. If you've ever drawn human anatomy, it's been a while. I guess I could have thought about that before, but your eyes are basically almost in the middle of your head. It doesn't seem like that because of all of our hair and stuff like that kind of hides those features. But if you don't draw it like that, you end up having it like a top of the head right here. It will look weird, I promise. So you want to make sure to give yourself plenty of room. And these are actually probably going to be coming down farther here. So I've got my basic eye shape. So then we're going to draw our nose here. And you do want it to be semi-large and not too small. So if it's too small, it's going to be super hard to tie. So there is kind of a medium in there. This one is not going to be one of the easier designs. It does take a little bit. I feel like if this was easier, there would be more tie-dyers who make skulls. And so I didn't really want to make a skull for the longest time. But because I had made quite a few of the Grateful Dead Steely Head skulls, that skull has a specific shape. And if you don't get the shape right, it's not a steely head. It's just whatever it is that you made. And so by making that and practicing that and figuring out how to tie that, it's kind of taught me how to do this. So this part right here, when we go to tie, is not the easiest. So if you ever look at a lot of tie-dyers, steely heads, and possibly their skulls, one of the hard parts to do right here is this set of teeth. So we're going to draw in some teeth. And we're not going to have the bottom part here. I haven't tied one with the bottom jaw and with that set of teeth yet. And last night I was looking at it. I had it drawn out on one, and I decided not to do it. It's like, just make the ones that you know how to make for now, and we'll figure that one out next. Okay, so here's our teeth. I'm going to draw some teeth in here. These teeth aren't going to be perfect. You don't want them to be perfect size. I have them at this size. After folding a few, this seems to be about the size that I can fold in there. So once we go to tie this, I'll go over this part here. So then I'm going to come up to this cheek bone. And before I go to here, so now we're going to come over to here, and I draw in this line right here at the eyebrow that goes up into the forehead. And this helps see the shape of the head, so that once I go to actually draw the rest of it, it's actually in the right shape. Okay, so now we're going to bring this little cheekbone. It comes out a little bit and like this. And it usually meets up just outside of under the eye. So about right here. We'll go ahead and bring that over to this side. And just like that, try to match both sides. It's always tough to match. And now the shape of our skull, it's going to go almost all the way to the top based on the size. So like this right here, we could even draw this in. And you're going to make it look, it's going to feel like it's bigger than it's supposed to be, but this needs to be kind of big. Not too big. You don't want a giant egg head. And that might look a little strange right there, but it's because we're not quite done here. Okay, so over here, your head rounds out a little bit, and then it starts to go up, curves in, and it's not a perfect round shape. Perfect round head looks weird. So that looks like a good shape to me. So we're going to come over here and try to copy it on this side. Yeah, symmetry is super hard to draw. Remember, I saw a comment online, someone saying anybody who can draw symmetry. Perfectly stated by someone who cannot draw, because they have no idea how hard symmetry is. Okay, especially on something large. Like a lot of people are not ambidextrous. I am semi-ambidextrous. Okay, so there we go. So now we've got that. We've got our skull drawn. And this is going to get folded in half, and we're going to tie half of it. So to finalize, like say your skull looks like a mess. Okay, we'll go over it with a darker color. It's just to finalize where our tie lines are going to be. And so I'm only going to do cover half of this here. I'm not going to worry about this half because I'm folding it in half. And so I typically always just I do need to draw both sides so that I can see it. I'm still not, I don't draw a skull well enough to be able to draw it just half of it and it look correct yet. So got the whole thing out here. And we are going to finalize half of it. So I made it all the way up to the collar. So I actually probably could have brought this skull down a little bit, but this is where we are. So if we had made it up here, the skull would not have fit, at least not at this size. Okay, so then our eye. The eye's probably the harder part to tie, just because it is in isolation right here in the middle. Okay, let's get our teeth. So now that one is drawn. So now we'll fold this in half by grabbing the top, making sure to grab the collar, grabbing the bottom, and just pinching, pulling straight up, flipping it out, folding down. And you're going to want to make sure all your seams are lined up and there aren't any extra wrinkles in here. Yeah, a couple wrinkles in there. So you may have to stick your hand in, get some of those wrinkles out there. And just like that. I think that should be good. Then we're going to start right here at the nose. Then we're going to do the eye and then the outline. So you want to grab some sinew, and we're going to isolate this and isolate this. So this is basically a mini upside down heart. It's not the easiest to tie, so you're going to basically pleat the line from here to here, and they're going to be small, and it may even be hard for you to see. I will try to make it as visible as possible. The goal is make sure your line is lined up. Your folds may not be perfect. It's all right. The goal, just get those lines lined up so that your shape is correct. And then we're going to put this 70-pound sinew on here. And I'm going to wrap this a lot. Probably 5 or 6 times. I don't know. I stopped counting. I just wrap enough to make sure that it does not slip. That's the whole goal, is you don't want that to slip off. Okay, so we're going to set that aside. And we're going to come over to the eye, and we're going to pinch it across the middle and line up this line with this line right here. And this can be a little difficult, especially since they are slightly different. Not too much different, just slightly. So once you get it going, then you're going to fold it in like a zigzag pattern so that your lines on both sides are lined up. It's just like that. This may be tough. I've done this on a bunch of different things. It's what I call an isolation. You're isolating this pattern. Or this little area right here. It's the same way geodes are tied up, basically. Just this is a more controlled way to do it. So I'm going to wrap this up about 4 times or so. Give it a good pull so that it pulls tight and locks on itself. It's one of the nice things about sinew is once you pull it tight like that, the outer layers pull tight, and then those inner layers pull tight over the outer layers and lock it down. So it's good and tight right there. Now we're going to pleat the rest of it. So you're going to come down here to the mouth. And this first fold is going to line up with the third. So the middle part of the teeth is going to line up with the third, or this. So first, second, and third. So that second one is going to be your bottom fold. The third one is going to line up here. That fourth one will be down. Then that fifth one will line up right there. So we're just making sure that those are lined up for now. Now we're not going to worry about this point at the moment, but we will be coming back to this to get the teeth. This is going to be the tricky part right here. It's actually something I haven't seen anybody else do, and so this will be the first time to show how to do this. So we'll see how well this goes. But this is to get the teeth pattern, which can be difficult. Okay, so we got that pleated. Now we're going to pleat the rest of the skull, and this can be a little tough depending on how close you drew the lines, and then how much of a curve you got right here. So expect to have some difficulty. This is where I have a bit of difficult with it. This is also the part on even the Grateful Dead Steely Heads that is difficult. So if you're having trouble with this part, just know that it is not you. This is a difficult part to tie. And it's just, there's only so much, or there's so much fabric, and you're trying to squeeze so much into an area. There's only so much that can fit into that much space. And so, yeah, it's hard. Trust me, I know. But I promise you can do it. And don't worry about it being perfect. Mine is not perfect, but that is part of how it goes. Like, there's perfection in imperfection, especially when this is all that can be done. Like, say you're not able to do it the way you think of is perfect in your head, but this is the way that you're able to do it, and maybe the only way that this is for it to be done in the first place, then maybe you did it perfect to begin with. So what our idea of is perfect and the actuality of perfect can be two different things. Okay, so now I got our line mostly there. It's good enough for me. So if you're having trouble with that, take your time. Don't get too frustrated. Don't worry about making it too perfect. Just make sure it's kind of close. Your drawing may not have even been perfect in the first place, and so maybe by adjusting or so, it may make it better. Who knows? We never know until you do this a few times. All right, so I'm gonna wrap this. We'll do this one more time, and then before I pull, I'm gonna put my hand down on this and pull, and we're putting pressure on it. It keeps it from bunching up when it tightens. I don't want it to bunch up. I want it to tighten into itself. Okay. So now we've got the outline tied. Then we're going to come back over to this right here. You see how this is just hanging? So this part right here, we are going to basically just push it up to here so that the outer line, so that this all just gets pushed right to there. And then we're going to take this. This might be a little confusing. Hopefully I can describe this well enough. I'm going to do one thing here. Pick this up here. So right here, all we're doing is making sure that these lines are exposed. And so now I'm going to wrap this around. Back over to here. And that is going to be the final tie right there. What this is going to do is give us our tooth detail. So lock that in, make sure that doesn't break. I had one of these break on me, and it was super tough to untie. It was not fun. Okay. So now we'll come over to this, and we're going to do the Rorschach design around this. So I'm just going to scrunch this all up. And squeeze it into itself, just like that. So if you need to see how to do this more detailed, this is the Rorschach scrunch design. I do have a video on just making that. So I'm going to take some of this cord here. And tie a little knot, a loop in a knot right here. Now I'm going to take this and run it through that loop. So I can slip this over here. And then pull this tight. I want it tight, but not too tight. This cord isn't the strongest and it can break. So basically, just pull into almost breaking point, almost. The goal is to get this bound to itself, but not so tight that it creates resistance, like with the with the sinew. This just gives us a nice crisp pattern all around it, depending on how we dye this. So we'll make sure to get all of this bound well. A lot of times I'll do this part with rubber bands, depending on what design I'm doing or what shirt. But I ran out of rubber bands. I haven't went to go get any more, so I just got whatever cord I got laying around. I got lots of cords to tie with. I'm trying out all different kinds of things for a while. Found out what I like best, what works best for what things, what works well for, or what doesn't work well for what. And yeah, like some cords, like sinew. If we were to do that here, sinew does not work very great for these kind of wraps. It'll leave white marks in some spots where it doesn't get dye, and then the tension on it is just kind of weird. It has too much tension. It's once you start pulling more, you start getting areas that are loose, and so I'm just not really a huge fan of using sinew on these areas. All right, so I'm gonna wrap this. Almost done. Okay. And I was about to wrap that other part, but because this is cotton, this cord can potentially take dye and make it travel down the cord. So if I'm trying to keep that skull white, I don't want to wrap it with this same piece of cord. I can use the same cord, I just need a break in the cord so it doesn't travel from one side to the other. So I'm going to tie this on here. Got that one. And now I'm going to tie this up right here. And actually, I do have a few rubber bands, so I'm just going to throw some of these small rubber bands here on it. So the goal here, so this is the eye. I want to make sure that the eye does not touch any other part of the skull. That way the black doesn't bleed into here. Same with the nose cavity. So we're going to bind that up, make sure it doesn't accidentally touch anything. And then we'll take a couple and put on here so that this doesn't accidentally touch anything. Yeah, with this being white, as soon as it touches any other dye, that dye will dye it instantly pretty much. So you need to be careful with that right there. All right, and all tied. All right, with the second shirt, I have it laid face up this time. So we're going to do this one the same way as far as the design goes. So maybe I'll try to see if I can make this one slightly smaller, maybe. We'll see. But then, so after this, we're going to tie a different design on the back of this. So actually, we're going to put the spine design on the back of this. I feel like it's fitting for the skull design. Okay, so actually what I'm going to do here, yeah, so we don't actually need it to be up that high. That's the thing. So we're going to bring it down just a little bit. I'm going to draw just a slight outline of the head. That way it gives me a more generalized idea on where to put the eyes. So if the head is going to be that big, I think the eyes need to go pretty much all the way down here. It may seem like it's far, but I promise it is not. Just like with the first one, we humans, we have big heads. And when you don't draw them correctly, they look weird. I promise they look weird. So this one's gonna be more for y'all to just watch. And I'll kind of blabber along as I talk. I got the idea to do this a few days ago. I don't even know what it was, but I was like, I've been asked to make the skull design before, and I'm not the biggest skull fan, and so I had made some Grateful Dead Steely heads. I was like, I can do that skull. It's not just a regular skull; it's a specialized skull. So why not? We'll do those. And then since we got Halloween coming up, I do like some of the Halloween vibe things. And so I was like, maybe I should do a skull, but I don't want to just do a skull. Like, you got to figure out something different. And then I was like, oh, you know what? The skull with the spine. I think that'll be a cool design right there. So I did that. And by the time I had the third one done, I had it down. The first one, I didn't really look at a skull to draw it. Dog's going crazy next door. Yeah, so the first one, I didn't really have a skull to look at. I just kind of drew it by eye. It was a little thin shaped, and but then when I was going to draw the second, I was just having issues, lots of issues. I was like, I can't see it right. I need to look at a skull. And so I looked at a skull, looked at a few different skulls, looked at some skull cartoon drawings, looked at some real skulls, and just kind of got a basic idea. And then once I did one that I really liked, I was like, that's it. I got it, and I can tie it now, and going from there. And a bunch of people seem to like the skull and spine design that I did, and so I decided, you know what, I'm going to show how to do the skull part. The spine, if you want to do on your own, that is totally up to you. But for this, we are just doing the skull, and I am doing a spine design on the back, but we're not going to do the same spine design that I did on my skull and spine design that I did. So this will be a different spine design versus my skull and spine. That you can get from me, or if you want to make your own, that is totally up to you. Basically, you got your spine running down right here. So if you want to figure out how to do that, it's totally up to you. Here we are going to make the skull on the front, and then we're going to do the tie-dye spine design. So the skull and spine is a little different. My spine is isolation after isolation after isolation, which overall will give that gives that spine look. Okay. So as you can see, we got our eyebrow ridge here. Go up into the forehead. Yeah, see, I said I was going to try to make this one smaller, and I did not. But it is positioned a little lower, which I feel like fits the shirt better. The last one was probably a little bit tall. It would have been great for the spine edition under it. but we are just doing the skulls for this. I think this needs to come out right here a little bit. There we go. The head seemed, oh yeah, duh, because it's not supposed to go that tall. Duh. It's like, it seems a little skinny, tall and skinny, because it was. Do some adjusting here. It's all about shape. If it doesn't look right, when you go to tie it, it's not gonna tie right. And like, yeah, you can be like, yeah, I got a skull design, but it might be all wonky. You're like, yeah, sure, it's a skull. You can say it's a skull. Or we can do like this and make actual skull. I know this is much harder, especially if you can't draw all that great. This will make it very difficult. And go over with our brown here and just get this half. I always drag, as you can see, and I grab the shirt so that it doesn't bunch up. Yeah, because you cannot draw on fabric the same way you draw on paper or anything like that. It doesn't work that way. Fabric moves with you, which can be a little frustrating, but once you get the hang of it, and it's all right. There we go. I like this to be a little bit smaller than if it were anatomically correct. I want it to be slightly shorter than it would if it was a real human skull. That cartoon skull is slightly shorter, slightly wider. Shows features a little bit better. There we go. So now we got our shape here. I don't want that to be too pointed. Make sure. Give it a pinhead. We don't want to do a pinhead skull. We don't want to do a bowling ball head. We just want that right shape. So our teeth. You can see how this is darker, how I can adjust. And even though that blue is there, I know to tie right here on the brown. All right, what we're doing different here is instead of grabbing both layers, I'm only grabbing the top layer. So we're going to separate the front and top. So I've got the two corners here. Pull it straight out like this, and then we're going to lay the shirt down. It's not going to be perfect here. I have to go through and do quite a bit of adjusting. So you want to make sure your middle of the shirt is lined up. And then we're going to line up back of the shirt here. And then we're going to do what's called the sleeve through sleeve method. So that's take the sleeve, you stick your hand through it, go all the way through to the other side. You know, grab that sleeve and pull it through. Sleeve through sleeve. What this does is separates the front and back and mirrors the left and the right side of the shirt so that you have the same image on the two sides, but then you get a different image front and back. And doing stuff like this will also allow you to get more definition or more detail into the front, since there's only 2 layers to tie here versus the 4. You can get a few more ties and stuff in. There's nothing that's going to really be different about this one, but there are some patterns where You can't really fold in half, but you can do them with the sleeve through sleeve method. Actually, the mandala is kind of like one of those, with it being an exact measured tie-dye. If you fold it in half front and back, you end up losing detail. And so you can't do quite as detailed of an image like that. The skull part, we're going to tie the same and take some sinew. I'm going to start on the nose here, and we're going to pleat all the lines. And we're going to isolate the nose from the rest of the skull, just like that. Lines may or may not be perfect. It will be just fine as long as it is close. So I'm going to take the sinew and wrap around here 5 or 6 times probably. Goal is to get this to lock on tight on here so that when I pull it, it does not slip. And that's going to create a resistance so that the dye from right here does not pass into the skull over here. So I'm going to set this out of the way. Come over here to the eye. Actually, I'm going to pull this away from it so that I don't grab any of the back into the front. And so what I'm going to do is fold the eye in half. And then I'm going to line up this line with this line. This can be a little difficult. But once you get it started and get it lined up, we're going to start making pleats, which will be it'll make a zigzag pattern depending on how you're looking at it. And our goal is to make sure that our lines just all line up right here as they fold. And we're going to do that all the way. So here's our line. Flip it over. And our line's pretty close right there. So now we're going to take this and wrap around that line probably about 4 times. Now I want to leave a little bit of slack here and make sure that it doesn't pull this super tight. So once I got that on there tight, wrapped on there a few times, then I can pull that tight. Let that lock on itself. Then we're going to go down here to the teeth, to the mouth, and put this out of the way. And so this first line is going to be our pinch that we hold. That second line is going to stay on the bottom. The third line is going to line up with this first line. And it's just going to stay like that. So we're not going to worry about this too much. We're going to come back to this part here after we finish this. And we're going to tie the teeth into the rest of the shirt. So now what we're doing is we're now focusing on the line on the skull. So here's the lip right here. And then under the cheek, we're just going to continue pleating those lines so that these lines all the way here end up meeting right here. So this is probably the hardest part of this. And with this one having just the 1 or the 2 layers of fabric here versus the 4, this will probably be a little bit easier than the first one to fold this part. I can already tell, since there's not as much fabric trying to crowd right there, it is a little bit easier. I just kind of flew through that, where the last one was a little difficult. They seem to be getting more and more difficult, but I've also been trying to tuck the bottom of the cheekbone up a little closer and closer to get it more of a slim, wide skull, and once you get it too close, it becomes too hard to tie. So this one I actually backed off a little bit from that first one. You may not have noticed. It's just a tiny little bit. There's little teeny things that you notice as you do this a few times. I haven't made too many skulls. I just made, other than the Grateful Dead skull, I just made my first skull a few days ago. So, so we're gonna wrap this about 3-4 times, probably about 4 times at least. I always say 3 or 4, and then I do it like 5 times. Now we're gonna come down here to the teeth and those folds that are already there for those two. What we're gonna do is just fold that up to here. I know that might be a little hard to understand, a little hard to see there, but so what we're doing is now, so the fold that we just had right there, now we're just tying the teeth to that last tie. So what this will do is give us our tooth shape, the shape of the teeth. This might be a little confusing. This is something that I haven't really seen on other tie-dyer stuff, but it just puts this little flap out here. This is our teeth. We're just going to put a tiny bit of dye on there when we go to dye that. All right, so now that we got that on there, we'll give this a cut. And now the back of the shirt, we're going to pleat it so that it's like a spine design. So we're going to make about 2/3 to 1 inch pleat. And we're going to pleat all the way up the shirt. And we're only going to want it to be a few inches wide, just because our spine isn't too big. So our spine's only going to go to about here. But we're going to continue all these pleats all the way up the shirt. And if you got folds, you just want to kind of spread those folds out so that the shirt is flat when you go to fold it. That way your pleats are all level and even. And we're going to tuck that up right there. So there's our pleat. And we'll grab some sinew. And I'm going to turn this just because I like to tie this way. Careful doing that if you are not used to moving stuff around without it messing up anything. So I'm just going to make one tie with the sinew here. Remember, this is going to be twice as wide as my tie. But I'm also going to be putting some black on both sides. So we're going to go probably about 2 inches, 1.5 inches, almost 2 inches wide. So it'll give us about 4 inches for the spine, which will actually shrink a little bit when we put some dye on there too. Okay. Pull that and cut that. And the rest of this, so I'm going to put the shirt, and I'm going to tuck the shirt, the sleeve down into the shirt so that it is scrunched and level in height with the rest of the shirt. And I'm going to scrunch the rest of this shirt here. And we're going to tie that up. I've got some cotton cord here. I'm going to use this. So to start this, I'm going to make a loop, tie a knot. Doesn't need to be very big at all. All right, so that loop right there, we're just going to open that loop. Take this cord and fold it, stick it through, and pull that. So now you got this loop right here. We're going to slip over and pull this tight. And we're going to bind all of this loose material up to the rest of the shirt. We don't want it too tight, but we want it pretty tight. With this being cotton cord, we can't really get it overly tight, which is good. We don't want it nearly as tight as the sinew that's on here. So we're just going to go through. And what this does is this binds this all together so that when we go to put dye on, it will kind of want to mess some of this up here so that it's not just a pleat pattern down here. I would like a little scrunch. Okay, there we go. And so if we tied this like real tight with the sinew, it would put there'd be some lines on here that may or may not necessarily want. With this cotton cord, won't be getting any lines from it, and so it'll just give us a crisp pattern around our skull design and for the rest of the shirt. So go through, make sure to get all of it. And normally I would use this, and we'll do it. Why not? Okay, so then we're going to bind. I need to be careful with the cotton cord. Cotton can sometimes cause dye to travel from one area to another where I don't want it to be. So I do need to be careful. And when I go to dye this, I'll have to pre-soak the cord in the color that I want it in that area. That way it doesn't bleed into other spots. I usually use a plastic cord or rubber bands. And I've run out of my regular rubber bands. All I got are little tiny ones, and they don't work for this part. Okay, now our skull. So we're going to bind up the skull to itself. That way it doesn't touch any other areas while we're dyeing. So with this being white, we don't want it to get color from any spots on it here. So I'm going to wrap that up. Make sure it's bound to itself and does not bleed into other areas or other areas bleed into it. So I'm also going to put some around the eye here, where the eye doesn't touch anything it's not supposed to touch. And to finish this, I'm just going to bring it over to here, wrap around this a couple times, and then pull it tight. This doesn't lock as well as the sinew. It'll kind of lock. A lot of times it'll snap. I'm trying to pull it just hard enough so it doesn't snap. This stuff breaks super easy, but it'll break right there. If I pull it to snap, I think it's really hard to untie. Don't want that. We got the first one right here, second one right here. We're going to color these different. So I'm going to dye the first one right here. We're going to make the skull white, and then we're going to color the shirt. And for this one over here, we're going to make the skull a different color. And I'm going to adjust something real quick. I can see the camera shaking when I move the table, so that means they're touching. That should be good right there. Yeah, okay, now we're good. All right, so first thing I'm going to do on this first one, I'm going to take some, this is dish soap and water. It's only about this much soap, just a little bit of soap and water. I'm going to put this on the areas that I want to stay white. This won't actually stop it from dyeing. If you got dye over this, it would still dye. But what this does is it creates a resistance at the points where the two liquids meet. And so say we didn't put this on there and we put too much dye on the shirt and it was oversaturated. Well, because there would be because there's no liquid on this part right here, the dye would start to move into the skull as the shirt was batching, and we don't want that to happen because then all your color will go into it and it'll bleed. We do want a little bit of color in the skull. I have the first ones I did were solid white, and the third one that I tied had a little bit of bleeding, just a little bit, and that amount of bleeding was perfect because it gave like shadow and depth. Yeah, a little bit of depth, and then along with the color that had bled into it, like just a tiny bit of color. I had dyed the shirt green, like a yellowish green, and to make it look like it was glowing. And because a skeleton has a little bit of that yellowish brown color to it, that little bit that bled into it actually made it look a lot better. And so I was like, okay, a little bit of bleeding is okay, but a controlled bleed basically is what we're going to be doing here. So we'll be putting the soap all over the areas that we want white, just to start off. And then as we start adding color, we will put a little bit of color over some of this soap in a couple areas, but not very many. And I'll explain that as we go over it. Just be sure to get this whole part pretty well. And just the part that you want to be white. So keep the nose dry, keep the eyes dry, and don't put any on the mouth either. So for the mouth, what we're going to do, so now that we've got that on there, I'm going to take some black dye, and that black is empty. Let me fill this up real quick. Usually I have all my dye prepared before we get to here, but my black bottles, I cannot see inside of them. The bottles themselves are dark and stained, and sometimes they look like there's something in them when there is not. So now we're going to take this black dye and put a little bit on the nose area. Be careful not to drip and not to put too much so that it bleeds into the other area. So you're going to put just enough on the one side, flip it over, put some over here on this other side too. Be very careful not to overdo this, just a little drop at a time, and that should be good right there for our nose cavity. So we're going to come over here. This is the eye cavity, the eye holes, and both of the eyes are right here. So both eye holes. Technically there's actually 4 here. So we got the front skull, the back skull, the left eye, and the right eye. All of them right here. So we'll want to saturate this fully. You can even do mostly black, and then like over here, some gray. I'm not going to on this one. I have two of them that are tied up and dyed right now that'll be getting washed out tomorrow with this whenever I wash this out. And they have some gray in the eye. And I wanted to see how it looks with black and gray. Kind of give it some more of a shadowy feature so that those eye holes will have some depth to them rather than just being a black spot. So I did get a little bit of bleed right there. That's totally fine because I was actually going to go through and put a tiny bit of black dye right there anyway, which we will do after this. So we're going to want to make sure this is saturated fully before we move on to the next. And I'm always like really careful around this. I let the dye come out really slow because it's super easy for one drop to just go wherever. And all of a sudden you've got black in this where you don't want it. So be super careful with that. And so now that we've done that, we're going to take the black and I'm just going to put a slight tiny bit on the other side of the tie. Just a small amount. I don't even want a whole dot or a whole drop. I want like half a drop in each area. And a little bit around the nose too. Maybe right here. That should be good. And then, so right here is the mouth. This is the teeth, those lines that we did. So what we're going to do is just put a tiny little bit of black on there. Just about a drop's worth, just to make sure that we cover those lines and see how it did not go deep at all. We're going to come over here, do the same thing right there, just a little bit. If you put too much, you won't have any teeth lines, you'll just have a black mouth. That's it. So be careful with that. All right, and then so up here, so this part in the little V section, I guess you could call that. So this is under the bottom of the cheekbone up into the eye ridge. And so this is technically outside of our draw line from the skull shape that we did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put some black in here, but be super careful putting black here because this can bleed into the teeth. And so if you put too much here, your teeth will just be black. So be very careful. I'm going to flip it over, do the same thing on this side. And just to get enough in there, not enough to bleed into the teeth. Okay. Now, the outline of the skull. So we're going to come through and we're going to put black. We're going to put a bit of black on the outside of that tie. And what this will do is give us a black outline of the skull all the way around it. So we're going to do this side and we'll do the other side. You want it to hug right up against that line. And right here, so because this and this are touching, what I'm going to do, take a little plastic wrap, just break off a little piece here, and I'm going to try to wedge it into there and just let it sit just like that. And what that's going to do is create a barrier so that The black dye that I'm putting right here doesn't bleed into the teeth and make the teeth just solid black. So anytime you have two spots touching that you don't want to touch, and you cannot get them to separate because of the way that it's tied, just grab some plastic and just put it between them. The dye cannot pass through the plastic, so as long as you've got a good barrier right there, there's no way for that dye to pass through that plastic. But if they're touching at all on the edges, if you don't wedge it under there enough, then it will. And you can see how the dye is going right there. So the first ones that I did, I put too much dye here and the teeth were a little dark. So I'm trying to see if it's even possible with this bottle. I even may need a thinner tipped bottle to do that, like what I have right here with the soap. But it does clog up. I do have black with bottles like that. It does clog up really easily. So I tend to use this more. That way I don't have to unclog it so often. All right, so now we got that outline. On the other side of the line, we're going to put a tiny little bit of black, just like we did around the eye and the nose. And this is going to give us a little bit of shadow and definition in the skull area right there. So we're going to want to be careful not to put too much. So I'm going to go through and put a little bit right there too. All right, now I'm going to take some of this and I'm going to put it over some of that black that was right here that we put in the skull area. And what this will do is blend and bleed some of it out just a little bit. And that'll give us kind of a shadow look into there. It'll give depth to the drawing. So some bleed is okay. This is a controlled bleed. We are doing this on purpose. All right, now that we've got the skull itself colored, we're going to do the rest of the shirt. So we're going to do, let's see, what color should we make this one? Let's go with the green glow. I've been liking the green glow. So to do that, I'm going to start off with some yellow right here. And what this is going to do, we're pretty much just going to be covering up this yellow, but this will make the end of the green really bright. So the yellow is what makes green bright, with green being yellow and blue. By mixing some of the other colors in with it, you can get some more effects out of the color itself. So this green right here is mostly yellow with a little bit of green in it. I alter my colors. I only work with about 7 or 8. I think I work with 8 dyes, 9 dyes maybe, and all my colors come from those. So this would be Grateful Dyes bright green mixed with lemon yellow. It's either Grateful Dyes lemon yellow or Jacquard lemon yellow. I don't know. I go between the two. I use them as the same. Usually I order from Grateful Dyes, but sometimes when I'm low on a color and I don't want to put in a whole order, I'll just buy a color off Amazon here and there. Okay, and this is also bright green with lemon yellow. Is just not as much lemon yellow. It's still mostly lemon yellow, maybe a quarter green, where the other one is like 10% green and the rest of it yellow. This is how we get the gradients and stuff. So then just our regular bright green. We're right on the edge right there. And we're going to go back through with some of the other colors and overlap just a little bit. This can actually, just this one. I think right there is good. And we're going to take some black, and the rest of the shirt is going to be black. We'll go through and put a little bit on here. The shirt did seem to dry out a little bit. I do like to dye my shirts slightly damp, mostly dry, but slightly damp. If they're too dry, they won't accept the dye. They'll just bead and roll off. If they're too wet, they won't saturate fully because there's already some liquid in there. So slightly damp, mostly dry. Just wet enough to break the surface tension, but not wet enough to be actual wet. That way we can get as much dye in there as possible. Then I'm going to overlap some of this. Not too much, but we are going to go most of the way in. You see we'll still have a lot of color that goes around. What that's going to do is give us that glowing effect. So now we're going to take the lighter green and put it right here. And the rest of the shirt is going to be black. But I'm also, that controlled bleed that we did, we'll put a little tiny bit right here. Just a little bit. And I'm actually going to take a little bit of gray and put it right over the top of that. Just like that. It's that controlled bleeding that we were talking about. With it being a skull, most of us would be like, yeah, a skull is white. No, a skull is not white. A bleached skull is white. But skulls have some color to them. They are white-ish, possibly ivory, cream. Honestly, I don't know the exact color of the bone in its natural shape, but it's definitely not white. There is some color to it. And we got some grease, and that grease gives a little bit of yellow. So we're out of black on that. We got some more black here. There is, I think we are good on dyeing this first one. So I'm going to do, flip that over, make sure nothing is touching the white. And we will set that aside and get to working on this one. For this one, we're going to dye this skull green, but I'm going to make it a lighter green than what we used over here. So over here we had bright green, and I'm almost out of that brightest green. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a light bright green, and we're going to dilute this down. This will make like a pastel version of this color. And what we'll do is we'll use this just on some parts of the skull. That way we have like a light to bright fade on there rather than just one solid color. So this, I'm going to make this a little bit more of a yellow green. So this is going to be more similar to what that was versus that second color green that we had here. And then I'm going to refill this green. It's just our regular bright green. Grateful dyes, bright green. Okay. So to start off with this one, I'm going to go ahead and take black, and we're going to make the nose black and the eyes black. So usually when I'm using color, I'll put black first, and that'll be like my outline, kind of like if you had a coloring book or something, how all your lines in the coloring book are typically black, and then you put your color in the lines. It's kind of the same concept here. I've also made my own coloring book years ago, and I kind of want to make another again. I just haven't. I know what I want to do. I just haven't sat down and made it yet. So I want to involve some gnomes and some other things, possibly some geometric artwork and stuff too. So I think that might be one of my next endeavors. I got some paintings that I'm gonna be working on too. I have to do a. I don't have to. I want to do a mural over at Everybody's Glass in Old Town Spring. That's where I sell a lot of my tie-dye. It's where everything is in stock too. So if you are in the North Houston area near I-5, we're not very far from Houston. We're just up I-45 in Old Town Spring, right there on FM 2920. We're only probably about 2 miles off of the freeway, maybe. We're actually on Main Street in Old Town Spring, but 2920 just turns into Main Street. And it's all being worked on at the moment, so actually won't go straight to it. It's a loop to get there. You have to go down the right side of Old Town Spring, loop around, and then you'll get to Everybody's Glass there. It's 214 Main Street. I stock all of my tie-dye in there, and these shirts will actually be going in there when I'm done. I plan on going in there tomorrow, so I'm planning on getting these made, getting up there, and they'll be in the store before this video is even finished editing. Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. Because I'm gonna have to record the final part of this tomorrow after I wash these out before I go up there. So, well, we'll see. I may just not take these two and record that after. I don't know. We'll see. So I'm not trying to get up there super late. I'm gonna have quite a bit of stuff to wash out. All right. So right here was where the teeth are, and so I marked the teeth, and they're going to be bleeding into each other right there. And since I'm going to already be making this color, you know what? We're just going to go ahead and we're going to drip that into the middle there. What that'll do is give us some yellowish green teeth. And since the rest of our skull is going to be this color too, it'll be all right. We want that color teeth there. All right, so now I'm going to do the outline of the skull, and then we'll put color on the skull. So that I only added that real quick because I didn't want the black to bleed into that. Usually I'll do all my black outline first and then go to color. Not always, but typically. So everything kind of has its way that works best. And so I found a lot of times putting black on works well, but if you don't want it to bleed into things, so like see how it's moving this way because there's nothing to stop it, then you may not want to put black first because it may bleed into things that you don't want it to. But because I got this tie right here, I'm not worried about any of that. And I can actually see some of this is bleeding down here into down that cord. So I'm going to have to get to that pretty quickly with the color that we're going to be doing on this skull here. So we'll flip this over and get this side good too, just around the edge on the outside of the skull. I know on that first one we put some on both sides, and we will on this too, but we want to put color down first over here. So we're just going to do the outer side, make our outline, and I'm only going to work on this side and then we'll work on this afterwards. So then we're going to take the regular green, and that's going to be towards the edge here. Put a little bit here. We're going to put a little bit around the eyes. Put a little bit on both sides too. But not too much. We're actually going to be taking that lighter and brighter green, and that's going to be more of our color. So this is just kind of like a shadow color or a darker color. We're trying to give multiple colors in the skull here. So now that we got that, then I'm going to take the bright green, not the one I diluted down, but the brighter green, and we're going to put that over it so that we get kind of a gradient here. And I'm not going to cover the whole thing with this, just kind of lightly here, just enough to get some on it. And we're going to run some of it up here too, just a little bit. Now I'm going to take this green one, which is a much lighter version of the bright green. This is like a pastel bright green. It's going to be a little bit lighter in here than what we see here. And I'm going to go over most of this with this. We're going to make sure that it's good and saturated. By putting this color over the other colors, it's going to give some like blends. That way we don't just have hard lines of greens. We're going to have green gradients going on here. So I want to put enough to saturate most of it. And we're going to take the bright green that we had, and we're going to put this along the edge here. And a little bit here as well. And the rest of this is going to get this lighter bright green. And so you can see how light it looks up here. It's going to be even lighter than that. So we're going to get some good gradients. So it'll look like a glowing green skull here. We got our eye, our nose, and the mouth, and then the outline. Now we're going to come over to here, and we're going to go with the same color scheme. So what we'll do, our same color palette. So right here, we're going to put some dark green, or our regular brighter green right there on the edge. And then we'll put our green, our lime green, I guess I've been calling this bright green when that other one is bright green. But that other one's my dark green in comparison to this. And then this one's the brighter. And then we got the lighter. This isn't technically my green one because this has a bunch of yellow in it. My green one does not have yellow, it's just pastel green, super pastel green. Kind of label my bottles here with green 1, green 2, green 3, and then just regular green. That lets me know what strength they are. If I happen to dilute them at all. And actually, so we're only putting color on the one side. And the reason for that is we are going to make this a spine design. So we pleated down the spine, and then to give like our bone spine look that every what we'll end up doing here is, so now I'm going to put black on this back side, and by doing that, every other fold is going to be either green or black, and so it'll alternate green and black. And so when we open this up, it'll have that spine look with black separating each piece of the spine. And so you want to be careful with how much black you put here. You want to put enough so that it saturates through enough to separate the layers, so that you can tell that it is not just a straight line, but that spine look. I guess that's might be confusing, y'all. Sorry. Yeah, so now that I put some on, you can kind of see how most of this is green, some of it is black. There we go. So we don't want too much black, just enough. And I feel like I need a little bit more of the lighter green right here. And there we go. Now we're going to take some black, and we're going to put the black right here. And then I did not think about what color we're going to dye the shirt itself. So we're going to put a little bit of black here. Not going to put black on that opposite side right here. We're going to wait to do something right there. All right, there's enough black right there. And the shirt, let's make the shirt purple. Okay, so I'm gonna fill up this bottle with some purple. And we're gonna color in this whole side of the shirt purple. It looks like it's dried a little bit, so I'm gonna put a little bit here, a little bit there. That way it kind of soaks in before it repels off. If I put too much in one spot, it'll just bead and run off. You can kind of see that in a few spots is happening. So what we want to do is just put a little bit here, a little bit there. That way it gets on the shirt. And then we're going to go back over this with this dye, the same color, and let it saturate more. But it has to break this surface tension first. I have a spray right here too. So if it's too dry, you can spray. What that spray will do is break the surface tension. And now, yeah, see it. That makes it so much easier. As you can see, it doesn't want to bead off. It just goes into the shirt. So now we're going to go through and we're going to saturate this whole thing. It's probably actually going to take more than this whole bottle, but that is fine. I've got to be careful of the bleed here. Watch some run off. I just want to make sure none of that gets into the green. That'll make brown. So if purple and green mix, you'll get browns. And we're not trying to get any brown on this. So I'm going to be real careful. Yeah, so to get brown, all three primary colors get mixed. So like the primaries with this are fuchsia, and then turquoise, which is the same as like cyan or some blue. And you see right here, I got some purple on there, but that's okay. We're going to fix that because I was going to put some black over that right there anyway. Just hadn't gotten to it yet. We're making sure we got plenty of purple on the rest of the shirt. So this will be a purple shirt with a glowing green skull and a glowing green spine. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, take this black, and looks like a little bit's already gone past there. So I want it to bleed out just a little bit to give some shadow. So it's already doing that here. So I don't need to put any black there. But around the nose, I'm just going to put a little drop right there. And then I'm going to take some of this green, this super light green, put it over that, let it dilute it out just a little bit and spread. And that's going to give some depth to the shirt or to the skull itself. And then just a little bit of black here. We're going to take some more of this green, put it over that, and spread that out. Then we're going to take some black. Well, first, flip over, see how it looks. Oh, it looks like we are good. I could actually probably use a little bit more purple right here on the other side, it looks like. So we're just going to put a little bit right there. And then right here where I didn't put the black, purple's going right there. And the rest of this bottom is going to be black. But before I do that, I'll put black over the top of this. Just a quick covering. We're not trying to saturate this. We're just trying to put some dark black over the purple. And then on this side over here, we're actually going to take a little bit of purple to put around the black. It'll make the skull stand out a little bit more. And the rest of this gets dyed black. So depending on how much white you want here, will be how much black you put. So you don't want the shirt to drip. If it's dripping, you put too much dye. The goal is to get this whole thing covered here. If it does start to drip and you have too much dye, grab a towel, keep an old towel or some paper towels around, and you can give it a squeeze and it will absorb some of that extra dye. So I'm going to put a little bit extra on this just on purpose, just to show you. So this thing is very wet, very saturated, and the towel's not quite in reach. Okay. This towel right here, just going to give a little squeeze, absorb some of that, and that is good to go. So I don't want to set this down on any of that. So I just need to be careful here where this goes. And these are going to sit for 24 hours, and then I will wash these out, and I will have results for you once they are finished. All right, so both of our shirts are washed and dried. If you need to see how to do that, please watch my video, how to rinse and wash your tie-dye, and it'll go over the instructions on how to do that for you. So now we're gonna go over both of these shirts real quick. So here's the first one that we dyed. So we got our skull pattern here, and then our design around it. And so this one we kept white, and you can see where we put that little bit of color on the inside here that gives it a little bit of depth into the skull. And then on the teeth, as you can tell, it's really hard to keep the teeth from being black, but we do have some white lines here. So it does still give the teeth some definition. So we do have some teeth marks here. And then the way that we added that color by putting that lighter color right on the edge of the skull with a little bit darker moving out down to the regular green. That's what gives this glowing effect here. And then the black that we put on it. And then on the back side, we have the same image on this. So that's why I make sure it's important to have all your wrinkles out and to have everything level and flat. That way you have the same image from side to side and also on the back and the front. Now we'll go over the other. The second one, we put color on the skull. So I used a diluted color for this, so you can tell there's still plenty of color. We just didn't want this to be a deep, dark color. We wanted it to be a brighter glowing skull. And then our purple that we put on the outside there, with the black on the other side when we flipped it over. And then we did the sleeve through sleeve method here. So by doing that, we had a different image on the front and the back. And we tied that spinal pleat right here. So that gives the pattern of the spine. And by putting the lighter color on the edge with the deeper green on the edge or near the tie right here, that's what gives us that light color in the center with it being darker on the edge. And then that black on one side with the green on the other, alternating, and that's how we got this spine effect. Be sure to click that like and subscribe for more videos. My name is Nate. Thank you for watching.